the big asset that people have is not their 401ks, it's their house. And isn't it interesting that Obama and Geithner and all his Wall Street, Goldman Sachs advisors who are telling what to do were much more focused on stock prices than real estate prices.
Well, they have the whole mortgage. They do have a mortgage program that actually some people think is in a certain sense too generous or too indiscriminately generous.
The mortgage program, I think, is $200 billion, and the stock, the Wall Street bailout is $12 trillion.
Yeah, but do you believe as a conservative that all the people who just did a stupid job of buying houses and bought into a bubble mindlessly, or bought into mortgages that if they thought about it they'd realize they couldn't sustain? Do you think all those people should be bailed out?
No, but I think they're a better candidate for bailouts than Wall Street financiers. And I also think, and I'm pretty darn sure as a matter of fact, that if you wanted to restore consumer confidence, you would give people the feeling that their house is worth a lot. And that's going to make them go out and actually buy things. What's so striking about this is the consumption that Obama is stimulating is in Greenwich, Connecticut, not Springfield, Ohio.
But what, I mean, one thing you have to accept, it seems to me, if you have any degree of faith in markets, is that we were in a situation where house prices just had to fall. We had to get back to reality. The bubble had to burst eventually, and I don't think there's any way of getting around the fact that housing prices were going to fall. And in fact, my critique would, if anything, be do less intervening to save a bunch of middle-class homeowners some mortgage payments, and just have plenty of money left over for people who are truly unemployed. That's the best index of who needs help. If they can't eat, they need help.
What's so striking, again, and this is just the political science lesson here, is that just how thoroughly Wall Street has hypnotized the sort of the liberal intelligentsia in this country.
Look, I think you're basically...
Because you can't wait to dump on homeowners, but you're sitting here defending AIG and Goldman and
I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying.
I am listening. If saying the scale here is important. $200 billion in a housing bailout versus $12 trillion for Wall Street. Now, and again, which gets you more worked up? The $200 billion for housing bailouts.
The 12 trillion? Where did that number come from?
Yeah, that's the number of all. That's the total amount of money that the government has sunk into various financial guarantees. It's a Googleable fact.
But all of it is going to Wall Street. None of it is actually going to help the people who's.
It's liquidity injections and the Federal Reserve and the Treasury.
I think nobody would say it's all anywhere near all of it is going to Wall Street or even going to fat cats. Look, but let me be clear about what I'm saying. I'm not defending the details of the bailout. I'm saying, in a gross sense, it seems to have worked in forestalling the worst kind of panic. Beyond that, I'm sure there are a ton of things that could have been done differently. Certainly, and I agree that this thing stinks. The way the extent to which the policymakers have been kind of in bed with Wall Street or coming from Wall Street, beginning with Paulson and continuing, on the way down. And I don't like the idea that Larry Summers, it turns out, made however much money.
$8 million.
Yeah. No.
Why do you think they paid him $8 million last year, Bob?
It's an interesting question because, as Noam Shiver pointed out on a dialogue, there couldn't have been the expectation that the guy was going to return to government, because the thinking was his public career was over after he screwed up at Harvard, right? So it's hard for me to imagine him actually adding that much value working, one day a week? I mean, so I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Maybe they were just putting their chips on him. Maybe they did think he was going to come back.
If you were looking for a Larry Summers fan, I suggest you look elsewhere, okay? I don't think we're going to have a big argument about him.
My question, though, is I got to say, I think Warren G. Harding deserves an upward rehabilitation, because Warren G. Harding presided over a growing economy. Nobody disputes that. He was, according to Teapot Dome and so on, a crook. And everybody hated him for being a crook. Yeah. And now, I guess the new rule is that the economy goes up, you can be a crook. Right, Bob?
If the economy goes up, you can be a crook. I'm not sure.
And the voters will forgive you. They didn't forgive Warren G. Harding, but they
voters forgive a lot during a crisis. I would certainly say that it should not be the case that the Treasury Secretary is somebody who failed to pay his taxes. I mean, but this is the way things work, is in a panic when everybody says, no, wait, Geithner, the market went up when we appointed him.
Who was panicked last? Who was panicked? Were you panicked last September?
I was...
No, Paulson was panicked. You know why Paulson was panicked? Because he was afraid Goldman Sachs was going to go under.
Yeah, well, that was a different source of panic.
No, that's right. That's a different sort of panic. But the point is the panic that Paulson put in Bush's ear, President Bush 43, speaks for the panicked rest of us. You and I weren't panicked. We were concerned. They were panicked, and they talked Bush into opening the Treasury door. Yeah. And then Bush left office, leaving Obama to keep shoveling out the trillions.
Well, I think human psychology is a little more complex than that. I don't think Paulson was thinking, we're going to fool Bush into thinking there's a genuine crisis. I think he was convinced that... he seems like a reasonably upstanding guy. I think he was convinced...
How can you say that? When they let Lehman Brothers go bankrupt... Right. Happily so, but AIG owed Goldman $20 billion, so they bailed out AIG.
Well, I just think
with the CEO of Goldman Sachs in the room, according to the New York Times.
Corruption of Paulson's judgment. I just think corruption works subtly and largely unconsciously. So we don't, in a way, we don't disagree. But what do we disagree? I mean, what's interesting to me...
I agree with you. It stinks. I do agree with you. I mean, I hope that the Blogging Heads High Command edits this in such a way that we both agree that, quote, this stinks.
Have you ever seen editing happen in Blogging Heads, Jim? I think you're getting us mixed up with Fox News.